All right, Dylan, let's dive right in. What's your advice to your younger self?
Oh, thanks for having me. And the reason I'm dressed up is because tonight is our winter gala. And so I'm pretty excited to be here for the Europe Winter Gala.
Yes.
As an American, you don't get invited to many of those. But okay, to the question, how young are you thinking?
I would say college.
Oh, college, okay,
Yeah.
easy. In college, for me, it was probably about sleep, which is maybe a little silly, but like I was working so hard. And so I think getting more sleep would have made me more productive and definitely much smarter, because it turns out you lose a little bit of IQ if you don't sleep. I think also just to know that not everything is gonna be life and death stakes. It's okay to have some fun too, because I was just so focused on what was ahead. One thing that really ended up helping later on that I probably didn't know in college was, if you're in the frame of starting a company, really understand that why now. Like, what's the reason why you're doing something that's unique now? And that could be social, it could be cultural, it could be technological, it could be regulatory. I mean, there's so many different reasons why something might be important to do now where it wasn't able to be done before. For Figma, it was like several reasons. One was, the move to the cloud and the rise of SaaS tools. Another was the rise of design. The market was too small before.
Yeah.
And over the course of building Figma, it grew. And then another thing that was very important was technological. It was WebGL and the ability to use the GPU in your computer in the browser. And so that was a frame that I wish I had. I had it later on in college, but I wish I had at the start of college too.
Do you think that you also kind of like worked on getting this right timing, meaning that you put research and development in the tech so you kind of basically get closer to that timing?
I was fortunate to be working with my co-founder, Evan Wallace, and Evan is an absolute genius and incredible with all sorts of different technologies, but he was a trailblazer when it came to WebGL. And because he was so dedicated to WebGL and had done so much work to figure out how that technology could be utilized and all the different applications of it, we had a lead there. And we also had conviction that it could be used for these really important production use cases, whereas other people saw it as a toy. And so there's some unique insight we had that I think was also helpful. I think another thing that I would say to people that are in college, don't just start any company. It turns out there's like a lot of good ideas out there, and there's a bunch of ideas that can make money. But if it doesn't resonate with you deeply and you don't actually have deep conviction and passion for it, you shouldn't do it. So many people end up trapped by their previous intentions. You get in a situation sometimes where people have been working on something for 4 or 5 years, they're totally burnt out, and they're just not wanting to continue. And I think you can avert that by really diving into your passions and trying to do something that you're truly passionate about. And if I'm gonna give one last thought for people who are more college-aged, really focus on one thing. It's so easy to want to do everything, and you've been rewarded for it for so long, especially in the States. Maybe it's different elsewhere, but in the States, you're trying to get into college and you're doing 1,000 different extracurriculars and taking all of the classes, and then you're in college and a lot of people are in all these clubs and trying to do a bunch of internships. And it turns out if you want to do a company and do it right, you have to go all in on the company. And probably if you're trying to study and do great with your education, you might want to be all in that too. So that's another piece of advice.
As we all know and experienced, 2022 was a very interesting and exciting, but also scandalous year. What's an advice you would give to our industry as a whole?
Obviously, we are in a place right now where we were in a season of opulence, and now we're in a season of more winter conservation. And it's important to be really efficient right now. If you want to survive, and that should be your goal, is to survive. There's a chance right now to be open and vulnerable with your team. You're gonna face likely a lot of challenges. And as you do face those challenges, do your best to share them. So many people don't share challenges. They're not open enough, and your team knows. They're aware, whether they know it consciously or unconsciously, they know. And I think you can also lean on them for help, for support, and you can create a culture of trust by trying to engage them and be open and vulnerable. And then lastly, I would say, this is a time where, in winter you can introspect and slow down a bit. And I think by introspecting and slowing down, you can make your business not only more efficient, but also correct some of the things that you didn't get right. And I think so many of us have these parts of our business that are not optimal. And this is a time where you can really think deep and go deep and try to optimize. What's wonderful right now, especially post-COVID, is that all these communities across the world are resurging. If you need a community, you can definitely find it. When it comes to entrepreneurship, this is the best time when things are hard, is to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that you respect and look up to, and that will comfort you and you can comfort them as well.
What are the things that you do to ensure that you work productively with your board members?
I've got a really good relationship with my board, and for what it's worth, it was challenging at times. I think the core relationship was there, but they were not always of the opinion of like everything's going well. You know, they've given me tough feedback over the years. The thing that really turned the relationship for me with my board around was communication. There are a lot of bad board members out there. I have a great board, so I'm not sure this will apply to everybody. And if you don't yet have a board or you're trying to figure out who to add to your board, reference check with not just the companies that work, but the ones that don't work too. Make sure that you send slides well in advance. I like to do a board letter, 5 to 7 pages, detailing my thoughts on what's going on in the business, laying out strategy, and just trying to be more transparent with my thinking. For what it's worth, it also helps me crystallize my thinking. It makes it more narrative. That really helps because going to the board meeting, everyone's seen all the materials. I expect them to know what's going on. And we also do a monthly metrics pack. So there's never a board meeting where we say, okay, here's a metric that's surprising. Everyone knows they get the metrics every single month. And if they have concerns or questions or feedback, send that at that month mark. Don't wait to the board meeting, because by then it's like we're 2.5 months in or something. Why would you wait when we have something to correct at month 1? And so I think create that board culture and shared expectations of really, good performance from the board members as well, making sure that they know that they are responsible for giving feedback and for helping. I think that's very important.
How can we enhance our, human brain and perception to kind of like actually start, incorporating and act upon long-term risks and associated problems?
I highlighted that one for you because you gave me a long list.
Yeah.
I was like, which questions here seem interesting? And I said, well, that one seems interesting, and it still does. I don't know if I've quite solved it though. It's a hard question. Looking back at time, it's like where we are with climate, right? Mm-hmm. Clearly we haven't figured something out here. We had lots of important politicians tell us, this might be an issue. We made great movies about it, saying how messed up the world might be. But here we are. I think one thing I'd just add is I think that there's a lot of power in games and simulation. And I think that if you're able to simulate reality and make it so that people are able to see if we make choice X or choice Y or choice Z, here's what might happen, and see the downstream effects of that, I think it gives people more agency and shows that there is control that people have. So perhaps that's an avenue not necessarily to solve climate, but in general, I think that more simulation can be helpful for people as they're in a learning context and in a play and discovery context.
What do you believe the 2020s will be remembered for?
These are definitely interesting times. We've been talking all day long about OpenAI's new chatbot, and I think we're in the earliest phases still of what we're going to see from large language models, just in general, machine learning models. I'm not going to go so far as to say that we're going to have strong AI and AGIs here by 2030, but given the pace of development right now, I'd be surprised if this decade is not about AI. For what it's worth, you look back at the 2000s, and it's about a lot more than social media. And even though social media was such a, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, that was such an important technology. But we also look back at it and we think about a lot of other things too, that are cultural, world events, et cetera. But I think AI is such an important technology that, like social media, it will drive a lot of conversation and